All right, and we now welcome on William and Mary, men's head basketball coach Dane Fischer. Coach Fischer, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on, fellas.
We appreciate it. We're happy to see you have the same CAA support background like Joe Mihalik did the other day for Hofstra. So I think that's becoming a theme for at least the CAA coaches that we have on the show.
I like it. It's good. Yeah, like I said, I've got a blank white wall behind me here, so it looks like I'm not in a great situation here. So this has got.
We do have to work on getting ours too.
Well, Inglesby's next, so we got to.
Yeah, we do Martin Inglesy's next up. He's going to have to make sure he hops on the train.
Yeah.
I like it.
So, of course, as a rookie head coach, we want to talk about your first season. Really successful first season, but it wasn't like a very normal first season, that a lot of coaches go through. Kind of a roller coaster. I feel like more than some experience in their rookie years. I mean, you replaced a legend in Tony Shaver. There were a bunch of transfers coming in and coming out. I think that there were a lot of people who really liked Tony, and it's never easy following a guy like that. But even not being projected very highly in the CAA, you guys out of nowhere, really, you won 21 games. You finished second in the league. And in a first year of head coaching, that's pretty good. So just give us kind of like a run through of kind of what the whole experience was like, and how did you kind of make it all happen?
Well, the big thing that we tried to do early on was, really embrace the people who had been here before us. And that's our alums, that's administrators that have been here, and certainly, previous coaches. And, you mentioned Coach Shaver and the job he did here, and the admiration that so many people had for him. So that was something that we really tried to do, was just really embrace the work that had been done, and just try to continue to build the program as best we could. One of the things that was really important early on, I thought, was hiring a really good coaching staff, and our assistant coaches deserve so much credit for the success we had this year with the relationships they built with the players, the job they did in recruiting. And when we got here, we talked about having two goals in recruiting. One was to put as competitive a team together as we could for this first season, and the second was to make sure we had a long-term plan in place as well. And I thought our assistants did a phenomenal job with that. And then as it pertained to last season in particular, one thing that we did do is we inherited, one of the best that's ever played here in Nathan Knight going into his senior year. And we really built the team around him as best we could, and spent a lot of time with our players off the court, trying to build relationships, establish, our core values in our program. And, we ended up having a really good year, and it was really fun to see the team together and watch the fan base and the community, rally around this group.
I wanted to ask you about Shaver and kind of the unexpected leave there, and just how challenging it was for you to take over. There was a little bit of controversy, uproar that we heard in the media. I'm not sure, how exactly it was received by the William and Mary fan base, but was it a challenge to gain the trust of the fan base and the players? Of course, when you started winning, it probably got a lot easier, but did you feel like it was going to be a challenge when you first took over?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. It was a challenging situation because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of people that really supported him and the job he did here. And, one of my close friends in coaching was an assistant on the staff in Jonathan Holmes. And, change is never easy. And this was certainly a real challenging thing. And, the thing, like I said, the thing that we really tried to do was just embrace the people and embrace the work that had been done. I think that, a lot of times when you're a new coaching staff coming in, the easiest thing to come into is a team that hasn't been any good. And you can just come in and say, hey, we got to recruit new players. We got to build our culture. We got to change everything. And that certainly wasn't the case here. So I thought it was just really important to say, kind of embrace that change, and then, just try to build it one step at a time. And, we talked a lot about, being a team that's appreciative of the people that support us, being appreciative of our fans and the people on campus that helped make this go. And as the season went on and we started having success, it certainly helped us along that process.
Yeah, and it was, like we've said, a very successful year, and one I'm sure that maybe was just interesting to go into being your first year. And it seemed like there were a lot of different like checkpoints or milestones during the season. Whether you had the win at Wofford, you guys played Oklahoma really tight on the road. You wound up beating Old Dominion. I think that was a blowout, as was your game against Hofstra when you went to Hofstra early in the CAA play. So there was a lot of really impressive performances you guys had early on. So at what point for you do you think were you able to kind of take a deep breath, feel like your team had arrived, and I'm sure you had plenty of confidence going to the season? At what point were you feeling really good that you were on track to accomplish everything you set out to this season?
Well, it probably happened more than anywhere in in our off the court stuff that we were doing, and spending time with the guys, and just getting to know them and building relationships and talking about how we wanted how we wanted to carry ourselves in this program. And when we started to see practices go the way that we felt they needed to go, we started to see our guys work in the right way, communicate with one another the right way, showing some mental toughness and being really focused in on what we need to do. That was when it started to say, that we're going in the right direction here. Certainly early in the season, we played a ton of games on the road, and to watch our team, go through that and come together as a group and win some tough games on the road. And as you mentioned the Oklahoma game, we played really tough there. I think that kind of forced our group to become a little more cohesive because of all of the travel we had, and that kind of us against the world mentality that you always take on the road. I think that really helped us. And our season kind of ebbed and flowed as our expectations did, and I felt that as we started to have some success and then some expectations came on us, we didn't play as well, and then those kind of went away for a little while, and then we played better, and then they came back, and it was just kind of an ebb and flow with that throughout the season.
Yeah, that actually brings me into my next question, because I was going to talk about how there was that little bit of a bumpy stretch in the middle of the season. I know you guys started off really well, and that was kind of when everybody realized, like, okay, William & Mary is going to be a lot better in the CAA than people expected. Then you wound up losing, I think it was 5 of 7, but you finished off the year winning 5 straight, obviously on a good note. Had the second seed in the CAA tournament. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way you guys planned, and you had the loss to Elon team that's young, that's growing, that shoots the ball really well. And sometimes when you catch a hot shooting team like that, there's only so much you can do. So for you as a coach in your first year in a season that was filled largely with success, what kind of lessons did you learn in that loss to Elon, in a high pressure game that you're going to take going forward with this team?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, you mentioned, we played a team that they played phenomenal that night, and you got to give credit there. And they shot the ball well from 3. And what happened in that game that sticks out most to me is that we made 3 key defensive mistakes, and they led to 3 made 3-pointers. And I think that the understanding of the margin for error is so small that time of year. That was the difference in that game. And as we talked about, kind of seeing our team come together through practices where we were practicing really well, we didn't practice as well as we needed to on a consistent basis. We would kind of go maybe 3-4 really good practices, and then have one that's not where it needs to be, and then 3 or 4 more that you want where it needs to be, and then one that's not. So I think that fight for consistency in our preparation is something that we need to just continue to get better at. And I thought we made some great improvement there as the year went on. But I think that's what lends you to being able to go out, as the season's winding down into postseason play and really playing at your best, is when you've really prepared consistently throughout the year. And like I said, I think we did that for the most part, but not to the level that we needed to.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes honestly, it just doesn't. It's not your night. I know you guys played Elon in the last game of the regular season, and you won that game. But I remember watching that game, and like that team wouldn't go away. And and sometimes, especially in this modern day game, where the 3-pointer can be a great equalizer, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, that kind of takes us into, the off season here and the transition now because, you have a little bit of that, a stinger of a loss to end the season. And now you lose Nathan Knight, who, of course, was, as you said and mentioned earlier, kind of your do-it-all player, conference player of the year, the whole nine. Just give us, before we transition into talking about next year, just give us a little bit of a rundown on Knight. What was it that maybe, the common fan doesn't see that made him so good, and what's going to make him such a good pro at the next level?
Well, the thing I'll start with Nathan was when we got here, he and I spent, a ton of time off the court. I thought it was really important to really establish a relationship with him. And the thing that I told him early on, I said, if we're going to be good this year, you have to embrace that you have the easiest role on this team, but the hardest job. And what I meant with that for him was, you can't have a bad day. Okay. And you can't be a guy that doesn't want to work, in practice or is going to be a bad communicator. You've got to be the one that sets the standard if we're going to be good. And I thought he did a really good job of that. And I think that really helped our team. In terms of him as an individual player, he's terrific. He's as good as I've been around. His versatility is off the charts. He's a legitimate 6'10", can put the ball on the floor, can shoot from out to three, can pass the ball, can score on the block, and rebound. I mean, he's the total package. I think that once we get closer to the draft and he's able to start working out for teams and he's really able to show what he can do, I think he's going to really surprise some people, and I think he's got a chance to have a really long NBA career ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely one of my favorite players in the entire country to watch last year. He just
mine too.
I'm sure, especially everything that he did for winning for you guys. But the thing I think going into last season with William and Mary, a lot of people looked at how obviously Nathan stayed, but there were a lot of guys who transferred out. And what I think people were not accounting for was the impact that some of the guys who transferred in were going to make. And I think the two biggest guys, for that were Andy Van Vliet and Bryce Barnes, coming from Wisconsin, coming from Milwaukee. Andy was really good down low with Nathan. Bryce did a great job on the perimeter. Those two guys, I think, playing, maybe the second and third fiddle to Nathan, if you will, really, I would say were a huge, had a huge impact in terms of the level that you guys reached. Did you expect these guys to have this big of an impact when they came in as transfers?
Well, with Andy, so Andy had sat out the year before, so he had been here for the year. When we started workouts in the spring, I remember working out with Nathan and Andy, and I was like, wow, these two kids are really good. And if we can put the right pieces around them, we got a chance to have a really good team. Bryce was a guy that I actually remembered from out of high school, and it kind of followed his college career, just because I was an assistant at Bucknell when he was in high school. We had recruited him a little bit and looked at him. I thought Bryce brought just incredible leadership intangibles. He was a guy that just brought the experience of playing 3 years of college basketball, and that was important for us. And then the other transfer that we had too was Tyler Hamilton from Penn, and again another super great leader, a glue guy, tough, really knew how to play, and we ended up kind of having this team that was really inexperienced in terms of playing together, but we started 4 guys that were seniors or grad transfers. So we had experience in terms of just guys being in college anyways. But those guys all had incredible impacts in our program. Andy, the production he had as a senior for us was tremendous. And Nathan was clearly the player of the year and the best big guy in the league. And I think Andy was probably the next best, and at both of them. And what made them work so well together was their versatility and the fact that they could stretch the floor, and they were great complements to one another.
So we've joked around with Joe Mihalik and also Bill Cohen about how the CAA at times seems like the defense is optional. And so I wanted to just ask you, as a coach, how, first year coach, how do you kind of instill a defensive identity for a team in a league that it seems like it's very difficult to defend?
Well, it is hard to guard in this league, and that's because there are some really, really good offensive players, in particular on the perimeter. And for us coming into this season, the biggest focus that I had with our team was getting our guys to learn how to play without fouling. In particular, Nathan Knight, because that was one thing that had hurt him, especially during his sophomore and junior years, that he had fouled out of a number of games. And we talked to the staff at the beginning and said we are going to be a much better team if he's on the floor. So, that was really one of the biggest things that we talked about, was just trying to establish that that defensive identity of let's not be a team that beats ourselves night in and night out with mistakes. And we've got a long ways to go from a defensive standpoint. I think we made some good strides this year, but it's something that we're going to need to continue to get better at, because there are a lot of really explosive offensive players and teams in this league.
Yeah, it seems like it's been a trend for a while now. It's always a challenge. So let's finish off the interview with looking forward to next year. It's going to be an interesting year for you guys because, you do lose Knight, you do lose Van Vliet, you do lose Barnes, you lose Hamilton too, like you mentioned. All these guys, seniors, unfortunately, heading out, and you have some big shoes to fill. Now, you still have Luke Lowe. Thornton Scott will be back. I know he had some injury issues this past year, and he'll be back. Quinn Blair, Miguel Isa, all back. There's some others too. The CAA is going to be a beast, though. I think Delaware is jumping to the top of the league. Probably they're going to probably tussle it out now with like the Hofsters and the Northeasterns and the Charlestons and the teams that have been there before. Like we talked about Elon already, they're on the rise. So it's kind of up to you guys to make your mark and figure out where you're going to finish in a difficult league. So despite losing these seniors, how do you kind of plan to get your team in the mix?
Well, I think the big thing for us is, every year we start from the beginning, and we're doing that with our team right now. We just kind of started establishing our core values and talking about, what we want our program to be about, who we are, and what's important to us. We're going to have a very different look this year. We went last year from playing two guys 6'10" plus the majority of the game to this year, probably not having have one guy like that. So we're going to play, we're going to be much more perimeter oriented this year. We've got 3 freshmen coming in that I'm really excited about that I think are going to help us. We redshirted a kid last year who will be a freshman as well in the front court. And then, as you mentioned, the returning guys we have will all have that opportunity now to compete for a bigger role and more playing time. So, for us, the way that we handled last year and talking about, we were picked to finish 7th, and, we didn't post that in our locker and say we're going to, prove everybody wrong or anything. We just said that's just where we were picked. And what we need to do is focus on what can help us get better as a team and have a plan in place to be as good as we possibly can. And that's what we'll focus on every year is getting ourselves, let's max out as a team. And, I'm a big believer that if a team can truly max out, they can put themselves in the hunt every year. And the reason most teams don't put themselves in the hunt is they don't do the things to max out. So that's what we'll do. Like I said, we'll have a different look to us. I hope there's some improvements that we can make in year 2 from our offense and defense, and just a year of comfort with the system that we have. And I know at this point everybody's wondering more than anything, what's our season going to look like with schedule and all that's going on with COVID. So that's going to throw a whole new variable in there. But I'm excited about our group. I think that it's a great group of guys, and I always really enjoy the kind of the fresh start of every season and kind of building that team back up.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the attitude because, like you showed this year, there's really nothing that this team can't accomplish, regardless of any losses you guys might have. So, I mean, I fully expect us to see William and Mary right in the mix with everybody else, and we're knocking on wood, but we very much hope that we're going to get about as normal of a season as we can get, and we're really excited to see you guys play again.
I'd like to see the William and Mary arena look like it does behind you at some point this season.
Well, so what this is actually, this is what's coming down the pipe here. We're starting construction here. This will be finished in 2 years. So it's a renovated arena, brand new practice facility, brand new sports performance center, locker rooms, offices. I mean, the whole thing. So it won't look exactly like this year, but I hope we can get some crowds like this. But
just need some crowds like that.
That's exactly right. I'm with you.
It looks good though. We wish you obviously the best of luck in your transition period and also just your development of the program. So you're on a great track right now, and we thank you for giving us a little bit of your time today.
Absolutely, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and guys, stay safe.
Thanks, Coach. We appreciate it. Take care.
You bet.